Have you ever looked at your family tree and just wondered, what if? What if there's a secret hiding in there? A link to a world of, I don't know, castles, crowns, all that historical drama. Well, today, we're diving headfirst into a story just like that. A genealogical journey that uncovers this absolutely astonishing connection between a totally normal family and the highest levels of royalty.
It's a fun thought, isn't it? Something most of us probably daydream about. But what if you could actually prove it? What if you could follow the breadcrumbs generation by generation, way back through the centuries, and find a real direct link? Well, that is exactly what we're about to do.
So this story, it bridges a gap of more than 800 years. It's wild. It connects a woman living today to, get this, one of the most famous people of the 20th century, and to one of the most powerful Welsh princes of the entire Middle Ages. So yeah, get ready. This is basically a detective story, but it's written in our very bloodlines. All right, let's get into it. Our story kicks off with two women from two completely different worlds. I mean, on the surface, you couldn't imagine two more different lives. But their shared history, it's buried deep, deep in the bedrock of British history. So here they are, our two starting points. On one side, we have Elle Samantha Wise, and on the other, the one and only Diana Frances Spencer, the Princess of Wales. What we're going to do is trace both of their family trees backward, step by step, generation by generation, and we're looking for that one single amazing moment where they connect. Okay, first up, let's look at Diana's lineage. And honestly, it's like a journey through a who's who of the British aristocracy. This isn't some hidden, dusty path we have to uncover. Nope, it's more like a well-paved superhighway of power, titles, and influence. It's actually pretty easy to follow. You only have to go back a few generations from Diana, and bam, you hit solid gold nobility. We're talking about John Spencer, the very first Earl Spencer. And a title like that, it wasn't just a fancy name. It meant you had huge amounts of land and a real, powerful voice in the nation's politics. And believe it or not, the titles get even bigger. Another one of her ancestors, William Cavendish, was the 5th Duke of Devonshire. Now, the rank of Duke, that's the highest you can get in the nobility, right under the monarch. We are talking about a level of wealth and power that could literally shape the destiny of the entire country. And the pattern just keeps going. Here we have Edward Noel, the first Earl of Gainsborough. What's so wild is just how consistent it is. It seems like every single branch of Diana's family tree just leads to another huge name, another earldom, another castle. It's like this perfect, unbroken chain of power. Even when we push all the way back to the 1600s, we find people like Hester Wotton, a viscountess in her own right. So the conclusion here is pretty undeniable, right? Diana Spencer's lineage is just this pure, straight line of top-tier British aristocracy. Okay, so now let's switch gears. The Wise family line, well, that tells a very different story. This journey kind of wanders away from all those halls of power. It's a path that's probably going to feel a lot more familiar to most of us. So if you look at Elle's more recent ancestors, you see names like Weiser and Cowan. These are the names of hardworking Scottish families. You're not going to find any earls or dukes here. We're talking about ordinary people living pretty ordinary lives, far away from the spotlight of history. But don't be fooled, because this is where it gets really interesting. This is like a little tremor in the timeline. If we dig just a bit deeper, past those more recent, humble generations, the story of the Wise family takes this sudden, dramatic, and very aristocratic turn. And there it is, Sir William Stuart, the 11th Laird of Grant Tully. Now, a Scottish laird wasn't just some guy. He was a powerful landowner, kind of a chieftain with a ton of local authority. This is our first big clue that, hey, maybe the Wise family wasn't always so far removed from nobility. They had a noble past that just got lost to time. So here's the big question, right? We've got the Spencers, who pretty much stayed at the very top. And then you have the Wyses, whose noble line kind of faded away. How on earth could these two totally different family stories possibly come from the same place? And this is the answer. It's incredible. It all comes back to one man. Both family lines, after centuries and centuries apart, trace all the way back to a single common ancestor. Elle Wise comes down through his daughter, Helen. Princess Diana comes down through his son, Eorwerth. And that one shared person, 30 generations in the past, is Llewellyn the Great. And Llewellyn, he wasn't just some minor lord. This guy was a political giant. For over 40 years, he managed to unite the Welsh principalities and basically ruled as the Prince of all Wales. And he held his own against the super powerful kings of England. So this isn't just a link to some noble family. This is a connection to actual sovereign royalty.
So how did that royal blood even make it through 800 years? Well, it was through these key bridge families. For the Wise line, the bloodline passed down through these powerful Scottish clans, the Stuarts, the Sinclairs. For the Spencer line, it moved through Welsh and English families like the Kemys and the Lucas families. These families were the crucial links in the chain, the ones who carried that lineage across borders and through all those centuries.
This timeline really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? It starts around 1240 with the death of a medieval prince. Flash forward 2 centuries, and his bloodline pops up in Elizabeth Kemys, a key link for the Spencers. And then about a century after that, it shows up in Sir William Stuart, who's the anchor for the Wyse noble line. And then finally, it all lands in the modern era with Diana and Elle, who are essentially 2 distant cousins, totally separated by their status, but completely united by this incredible history. So what does this whole genealogical puzzle really tell us? Well, I think it's a really powerful lesson in how things like time, where you live, and just plain old luck can completely change a family's destiny.
The contrast is just staggering when you think about it. Back in the 13th century, their ancestor was commanding armies, building a nation. Then, 700 years later, one of his direct descendants, Robert King Beveridge-Wise, is just living a quiet life in Scotland with absolutely no idea about his royal connection. It's such a perfect example of how a royal bloodline can just spread out, kind of like a river flowing into the giant ocean of everybody else.
And that's really the main takeaway here. Royalty isn't some locked box that's separate from the rest of us. It's more like a genetic thread that, over hundreds of years, has woven itself into the fabric of our whole society in all these unexpected ways. The past, it really isn't as far away as we think it is, and we're all part of its huge interconnected story. So what this all shows us is that history is alive. It's not just stuff written on dusty old pages, it's literally written in our DNA. And that just has to make you wonder, right? What incredible stories, what forgotten ancestors, and what hidden connections are waiting to be found in your family tree?